Frank's married.
Oh, yes, I'm married. Yep.
You've got to start it off with that, with the bang, because you've got a tan.
I've got a tan. I've come back, relaxed.
European wedding.
European wedding, yes, indeed. And now back into the swing of things.
You can start on the property stuff, but you've got to start on the personal. How was the wedding?
It was awesome. Very good. It was a day to remember, which was nice. 100 people from Australia came down to all the way to Italy.
Beautiful.
And then we had a nice after party the next day, which was a big pool party and beers by the pool and DJ. And it was good. It was really good. It was awesome, something different and special. So especially a couple of days to remember.
It was 4 weeks.
Of course, the whole trip, but I'm saying the
wedding
the
itself.
Wedding itself,
yeah.
Yes.
And the Bucks party was good as well.
Bucks party was also good. It was a success.
Definitely.
What would you say, wedding or Bucks?
Definitely Bucks.
Bucks.
You only get married to have a Bucks party. We're going to Vegas.
Vegas. And big news for yourself. Adrian, proposed.
Correct.
To his missus at the end of his trip.
She didn't say yes.
She didn't say yes. Jeez. Oh, that's good.
No Bucks party.
No, it's not actually. No. Nah, let's never talking a bit of shit.
All right, let's go. What are we talking about today, my dear friend?
Today, everyone wants to know.
Yep.
When is it too late to get into a market? Because you can get into a market and you might get in and then it might eventually slow down. And so what happens is that people hear about a market, go, oh my God, we heard about, for example, Townsville, Gladstone, wherever it may be, Perth, it's on fire. By the time you hear about it, you're probably going to get into the market and pay 100 grand or more over than what the property is actually worth.
Yes. Disclaimer on this. If you're thinking about holding the asset for 30, 40, 50 years, none of this really matters.
It doesn't, but at the same time, you want to try and pay, I wouldn't say pay as minimal as possible because there's no such thing as that.
Correct.
But you do want to get in and ride that wave because if you get in at the wrong time, and let's say you buy the market and it has 2 years left or 1 year left, then after that, you can't keep taking out equity from that property. And if it goes down from what you paid, which it can happen, and of course it does happen, then you're at this point where you can't actually borrow and that property is actually a liability.
Sorry, I probably should have said disclaimer. If you're willing to hold the asset for 30, 40 years and you're not really worried about building an actual portfolio, you're just like, I'm going to buy an investment property and, it'll grow over the next 30 years, disregard, don't watch this video. But if you actually want to be a professional investor or actually want to maximize the return, this episode I think is going to be very much for you because, yes, this is about how do you identify, and I think you're going to go into like even how to identify the first year, the second year.
To some degree, I'm going to explain how to get into that market if it's the right time.
Yep.
How to get out.
Perfect.
In a sense of getting in nice and early and then getting out or when you should stay out of that market because it's
getting out to sell the property or getting out to not buy?
Not buy.
Perfect.
Okay.
Awesome.
So this is getting into buy, getting out to not buy.
Okay. Which we've touched on in recent episodes, but I want to, this is going to be good. Okay, awesome.
And this is going to help people make sure like they can get in at the right market if they want to do it themselves. Of course, full disclaimer, this is hard work, takes a bit of time to do this, but I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you what you should be looking at.
Yep.
So then you can go out there and do it. Can you do it? Is it possible? Of course it is. Takes time. That's the only thing. Takes time to understand this and practice. But hopefully this helps. Hopefully for the ones that want to do this themselves, it gives them a bit of foundation.
Before you do get into it, what would you say is the actual most difficult thing of actually being able to do this? Is it just time, actually being able to dedicate those resources?
Of course, time and knowledge and having the resources and the experience, of course, because doing it the first time and you don't have anyone guiding you and you're doing it by yourself, it's very difficult, of course. It's like, you do an apprenticeship, you got someone watching you, teaching you. That helps. But when you got no one doing it with you and you're trying to learn, of course, that takes another level as well. So I'm going to try and be as detailed as possible, show the main things that you need to look out for, okay? It's not rocket science. So let's just say it's, it's property, looking at certain things and certain things that we need to look at that you can get from property data, websites that we'll share with you. But we'll give it as much value as we can in this podcast.
Awesome. Again, just to reiterate, the first time you ever picked your winner was Switch, 2018? 2019. So 6 years in the making. How many assets we purchased now? 600-700 properties?
Close to nearly 600 now.
Awesome. 600 properties.
Yep.
Not yet gotten it wrong. So what you're about to go through, it works.
It works, definitely
You
works.
be the person, if you're behind the camera or listening to this, you determine if you think this is also going to work and if it's worth listening to. Let's rock and roll. Awesome. Let's do it.
So getting into the market, what do you need to look out for? Number one, when did the last boom cycle happen? It's very important that a market can't be growing rapidly for 10 years straight. It's normally around that 5 to 7 years of good, strong growth. And towards the top end of that growth, it starts to really slow down. If you have it's a good example to look at, say, Brisbane, Perth. And the reason why I pick those markets, everyone knows those markets, but you can see that the market, if you go back 2, 3, 4 years ago in those cities, that the market was double-digit growth, 15, 20%, if not more.
Yep.
At the moment, they're very low.
So what's low?
Well,
it's back to 5, 6, 7?
It's starting to come down to the single-digit growth phase.
Okay, so still above the Australian average.
Still above the Australian average, but slowing down.
Gotcha.
So you can start to see we're getting to the top.
Yep.
And so what I look at is go back in time and have a look at when that last growth phase is. Now, it's quite important to point this out. COVID wasn't natural growth. We had 96% of regions double-digit growth during COVID, which was not meant to happen. It only happened because of course, the pandemic. So you're going to see a lot of fluctuation during those times when you're looking at this data. So what you got to do is go back and have a look at the long sustainable growth that they had for that 5-7 year window, 20, 30 years back, and have a look at the cycles. Okay. Because if you look at Brisbane, for example, took off around 2019. We go 2010, didn't take off. But if you go down to 2002 or 2002, I should say, to 2008, 2009, it took off.
Yep.
And then had it slow down and then it took off again.
Yep.
So I go back in time and I see, okay, this market hasn't done anything in the last 5 years. If I'm getting into a market now and I see, okay, the last time it boomed was maybe 10 or 12 or 13 years ago, whatever it may be, I go, that's the last time the boom cycle was. So it gives me confidence that it's coming close again, turning point, that the market's going to take off.
Gotcha. Okay. And is there a certain period that you're actually looking out for? I know you said they're 10 or 12 years, but correct me if I'm wrong. 2012, 2019, Brizzy didn't do much, which is a 5 to 7 year period. 2012, 2019, 7 year period. And then it took off and went ballistic all the way. I mean, even today, it's still going really, really well. Yeah. Is there a certain period of time, certain amount of years that you're looking for, whether the region or the state or the city's having really slow growth?
Well, some markets are there's those underlying markets that are pretty consistent and have consistent growth. Not all of them do that. And they're very few between that do that.
So what would an example of that be? A region? Wagga?
If you look at Hobart's pretty consistent. It's had a slowdown in the last three years or so.
Yep.
It wasn't supposed to have that COVID growth, had a bit of a spurt there, but it's been still consistent with that 5 to 7% growth, okay, in certain areas. So you have seen that nice consistent growth, which has been great. Not every market does that. Majority of markets do have a tendency to slow down and sometimes go backwards.
Yep.
So I look at that 5 to, say, 10 years of when its last growth phase was.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Awesome. That's the first. What's the second?
Okay. What does the economy profile look like? Okay, because it's all good to look at the cycle and then people go, I'll jump in now because it's hasn't had a growth phase in the last 10 years or so. But if the economy isn't doing so well, meaning that the economy is not growing or expanding, but it's contracting, okay, that's not a good sign. So these are things that you need to look at and say, okay, is the GRP growing? Are jobs increasing? Is there unemployment coming down? Are we looking at, money getting spent into the industry, creating multiple jobs? Are there industries that are growing and outperforming or improving over the last 5 or 10 years?
Yep.
So if you go back to, say, I'm just going to pick a town, Wagga Wagga. If you go back 10 years ago, have a look at the industries that were driving the market. Has those industries that were performing back then improved, but also other industries that show resilience?
Okay.
And so these are things that I look at and looking at the profile of the economy, because you don't want to get into a market and the economy's not doing well. The property market will not perform.
Okay, so an example of this, because I know you've made the conscious effort of not getting into Darwin, NT.
Yep.
Is that an example of, that hasn't boomed now for, you'll know off the top of your head how long. Is that an example of, well, hang on, that economy is still not actually growing? That is the reason why you haven't gone into there?
No, I think it's a quite I don't love the economy. I think it's very reliant on the public sector as well. So it's got a lot of government jobs and things like that and grants. And if policies change, it can be influenced a lot. So there's a lot of money getting spent because of that sector there.
Yep.
And I just look at it, it's not very diverse. And I think it's not a very attractive place for people just to go there and live. It's got an attractive place for work. But I just look at it and I go, okay, well, is there other places that are more stronger economically wise? And yes, there is. And so that's my choice of why not to get there. And there's a lot of buyers agents out there at the moment, which is fine. You're going to get that across the country, even where places we're buying at the moment. But they're there. When I look at the economy, it's much more stable. So I'll rather put my money there and just be more safe.
Yep. Okay. Cool. That's the second one. Go into the third.
So what does the future hold? Okay, I think the outlook is very important. Every place you invest in, the region or the states, there is always a plan in place. Okay, so normally you got a federal plan, strategy plan of what they want for Australia. Then there's a state plan. Okay, and the state puts a plan out for the state itself, and will say, okay, these certain locations we're targeting, improving, spending money or granting money to these areas, and we're going to do X amount of projects across the country or across the state, I should say. Then you've got local government plans. And local government is the local council, have a strategic plan of helping the economy grow and doing things that are going to help strategically improve it. So I look at these things as what's the profile look like? You'll see projects, you'll see, incentives and renovations and developments and things like that. Creating of jobs and migration will come from that. But there is a plan in place. If you do not have a plan, what happens?
Fails usually.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the most important things when you're looking at these things. And you can get that from government websites of federal government, state government, and of course the local government there, and just look at strategic plans, outlook for the future and what that looks like.
Cool. Okay. Love it.
Number 4, okay, what are the constraints on the market? Okay, so one thing that I look at is building approvals. Building approvals is good to see if you start seeing buildings getting popped up because they're building more properties and developers are in there. But if there's an oversupply, we all know what happens. Too much property on the market affects your demand. Demand starts to slow down. There's more supply. Prices start to reduce, or even rental prices start to reduce, and there's too many rental properties on the market.
Yeah, so how do you work out whether it's an oversupply or not?
Good question. So you'll get the total amount of dwellings in that area.
Yep.
Then you'll get the total amount of building approvals that are coming into that area.
Yes.
And normally what you do is you divide it by each other and it will spit out a ratio.
Okay.
What I look at is I don't want too much of a supply. So there's normally percentage formulas that we do follow. The lower the percentage means the less supply that is coming on, or more risk, less risk coming onto the market.
Can you give me an example just to
1% or even lower than that is a very good market of low supply of building approvals.
Yep.
Anything that starts to go above that, 2, 3, 4% is probably too much supply coming onto the market.
Okay.
And so you look at these newer states, for example, let's use Melton for an example. Okay, Melton has a large number of migration pattern in Victoria, but then you look at the supply that's coming on. There's a lot of supply coming on new estates and a lot of these off the plan properties for first home buyers and stuff like that. But predominantly that's more focused to owner occupiers. So then we look at that as a bit of a risk involved. Okay.
So can you just, I don't know if you have it in front of you, like what would the number or the actual mathematical equation
So let's say it's like there's 20,000 dwellings in the location.
Yep.
And there's 500 or 200 properties coming onto the market.
Yep.
Okay. You would then divide that by each other.
And that'll spit out the percentage.
It'll spit out your percentage.
Perfect.
Okay. And that's something that we look at and say, okay, there's not an oversupply. And then I always want to see there's a reduction of building approvals coming into the market, because you'll see these places, like for example, you'll see Melton has actually had a bit of a spike up to the previous year, the year before. So there's more properties coming onto the market today. So it's actually it can be quite dangerous, but of course there is good pockets and bad pockets, and all those properties are going to go in all these areas of Melton. It's going to be certain parts spread across Melton.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. So that's the 4.
And then of course there's a bunch of other things like stock on market.
Yep.
You want to see that dropping down, and inventory levels or supply issues, supply of stock is dropping also. So you see that. Same with vacancy rates and I guess rental listings.
Yep.
You just want to see that dropping as well. So it gives you confidence in the market that, there's less and less stock.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. that's the four of why we're going into a market. So when's the last boom phase? What's the economic profile look like? What does the future hold? And then, what are the constraints in the market, like what you just touched on? How do you go about then determining when to get out of the market?
This is good if you want to get out, or if you're like already purchased in the market, okay, or let's say you might have some other buyer's agent watching this, they might be using this video. When you're buying in that market and it's like, okay, when should we get out? Or someone's trying to do this themselves, okay, they want to invest in a particular market. Mm-hmm. This is a good exercise to see, okay, should I not be buying in this market?
Correct.
Okay.
And just reiterate, this is not when to sell from the market. This is the market's just started to boom today. In 18 months' time or 2 years' time or whenever you're going to touch on, that's when you would stop buying in that particular market. Correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Let's rock and roll.
So how much growth has it had in the last 2 years? Okay. I think that this is quite important. People will get into a market. They'll have a look at, I've heard about X, Y, and Z. Oh, awesome. It's grown by 20% last 12 months. Let's get in. Mm-hmm. Okay, have a look at the last 2.5 months, I should say. Have a look at what it's done. And if you've missed out on a lot of growth, like it's already been like, let's say it's grown 25% for the last 2 years, you missed out already on 50%, okay? And maybe the third year, maybe it grew maybe 5 or maybe 10%. Mm-hmm. Who knows? I'm just plucking figures out there at the moment. Like then you look at it and you go, okay, I've missed out anywhere from 50 to 60%. This is too much of growth that I've missed out on. Can I go into a market and get in by doing the first 4 steps of getting into a market and capture that growth because it hasn't had that much?
At the start of its growth phase, not midway.
Correct. And so what will happen is we'll probably buy in a market for probably 2 years. And then after that, for the next 3 to let's say 5 years. Sometimes it can be a little bit less than 5 years, but 3 to 5, then the market will start to slow down. So it's like get into a new market and capture that growth. Yep. Because what will happen is you'll come into a market like that, and then you're going to start seeing prices are pretty inflating. Like 30% or 25% is a lot of growth. Mm-hmm. What happens is you're going to start seeing offers
gone ballistic.
Yep. Okay. So what will happen, the next step is like you'll see a market, and this is a good indicator, which is number 2, if there is multi-offers on a property, and I say multi like 10, 20 offers on a property, you're paying overs for that property and there's no negotiation. That's a good indication of, is the market too hot? Yep. Okay?
Yep.
Every man and the dog are there. They've heard about it. It's on the radio. It's on the news. It's on social media. Okay. I'm competing with every single person. If you put an offer in it, it's 50 grand over and you didn't win the property and it probably sold for 100 grand over, then you know, okay, this is not the right time to get into this market.
And we're talking about assets at 5, 6, 700,000. A property at $600,000 going for $100,000 more. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's okay.
And this can happen, and this is even for people that are buying at $1 million and above, because it's a different market to a 500K property, and you got. When you see a property grow by 100 grand, that's a 500 grand property, that's a lot of growth. If you see a property that grows from 100 grand, that's $1 million property, it's not as much growth compared to a 500K property when you look at a percentage.
Yeah, correct.
But the same rules apply.
Okay.
So if people listening to this and they're looking to get into a higher value market, same rules apply.
Yep. Okay, cool. I like it. So that's the first 2. Last 2 years of growth, how many offers? Have you got exact numbers for that? I know you kind of mentioned it, but like, Is 30% too much growth in the last 2 years? Would you consider that for your sales or for your clients? Would you go, market's grown by 30% in the last 2 years, we're out?
If it's just 30%, I think you can, you still got a bit of growth left in that market. And depending on the resiliency of the market and the size and the capita, because if it's a small town, like if you're buying in a regional town and say it's got 40,000 people, 50,000 people, and the economy is not that strong as well, I don't think the population, let me take that back. Population size doesn't classify too much. It does, but not so much as well. It's more the size and the demographics and the diversification and what's coming into the market. If it's not that resilient compared to some others, because of course some of them are more resilient than others in economic profile, then you might have to question that 30% or 40%.
Okay.
But some of it, if it is a market that's quite resilient, your strong market, got very diverse with different industries driving it, 30% might be, okay, it hasn't had that much growth. It's still got a lot to come. That's fine.
Gotcha.
Okay. But this is where understanding the economy comes into effect here.
Cool.
Okay.
And then for how many offers are on a property? I know you said 10 before.
10, 15, 20, like the higher it gets, the more you say, okay, 10's not too bad. I think 10 is fine. It's depending on how much it's going over.
Gotcha.
You know, because
Okay,
like
so
we'll put offers into current markets that we're buying at the moment, and there might be 10 offers, okay? And that's fine. But when I look at the, over asking, let's say the property, they're asking 500 grand and we pick it up for 20 grand or 25 grand, that's fine. But as soon as you start saying 50 grand, 60 grand, over even more, you start to say, okay, this is not what we want to be doing. I remember, to put this back into perspective, 2023, we're buying in Townsville. 2021 to 2023, we're buying in Townsville. We hit Christmas. We come out of Christmas, January 2024. We're looking to get into the market, for clients coming back on board. We go to put an offer in. You're looking at 50 to 60 grand above asking.
Yeah.
And agents are like, the market's just turned. There's all these people focusing on Townsville. It's become a real known place. We said, no, we're not buying in Townsville. It's ridiculous. So you would see a property listed for 500, it'll go for 550, 560, even more.
Yeah.
And that was a tactic that a lot of the agents were using. So then we're like, okay, we stepped away. And so that's a good indicator.
Yep. 10% over asking.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Third.
How long does it take for the property to get sold as well? So I think if someone lists a property and they put a property up, say Monday, and you call up on a Wednesday and like, oh, mate, this property's sold, and that happens, and then you do it again and you find another property and then they go, oh, it's property sold in like 3-4 days, because days on market's a lagging indicator.
Yeah.
And it might say days on market there is 15 days on market till property is sold. Yes, but then of course, once again, you're getting off data that's online, how long they have the property listed for, how long until they take it off.
Delayed data.
It's all delayed data. You see that, and when you're on the ground and you're negotiating or putting in an offer, maybe you shouldn't be buying in that market.
If it's 3 days, 5 days.
You call up and it's like, oh, that property's already under offer. It's already been like 3 days since it's been on the market. You're like, what?
Yeah.
And that happens a lot.
Okay, cool. That's another very, very good sign. Oh, these are all things that people can look at and obviously are going to go through if they are buying for themselves. Okay, so that's the third one. Fourth one, tell me about that.
And fourth one, I think is the most important one, and I've left the fourth for a reason because I think it's a good talking point, is when did the last boom cycle happen? I know it's quite similar to the first step, but having a look, and I like to go back and actually look at the data and going, what was the pattern? What was the pattern when that boom cycle happened last time? And following that cycle and what it was doing and how many years it went for. And then what I do is I go back and I have a look at this market and I'll say, okay, if it's already had 2 years of growth, I look at the last time it had a boom cycle, what did the first 2 years do? Was it very similar? If it was very similar, you start to kind of see, of course, past performance is not going to equal future performance,
of course,
but it gives you a good indication for something to look at.
Okay.
And so you look at the more study you do on this, the easier it becomes, because the more you can go back and go, okay, 2020, there was a boom in this area. I'm going to look at all the research that happened and what influenced that to be a boom, jobs, economy, GRP growth, all those sort of things that we stand to talk about. And then, of course, we look at the growth rates. Okay, perfect. From there, you put it into practice right now, 2025, and you see was the same thing happening. If it's very similar, it's of course not going to be identical, but very similar, okay, it gives you a good indication of where this market's at as well.
Cool.
So number 4, I've left it last, but this is probably a good thing to use as number 1. There's no particular order of what I've done here, of course. I've just labelled them, and these are kind of top 4 of getting in and getting out, or leaving a market, I should say.
Cool. So just on this last one, because I think it is a good talking point, let's say Townsville 20 years ago, it boomed for 7 years and it did 150% growth in that 7-year period. That there, you would look at that and go, okay, cool, this is the trend. We're 2 years in, first 2 years back then, that it grew by 15% or 20%, kind of showing similar patterns right now.
Similar patterns, yes. And I would go back and look at what drove that market back then and all the influences that happened.
Now,
and what's different now and what's improved and what's changed, all the jobs created and all the infrastructure projects back then. And the same thing goes back there as well when you're going back in the past performance.
I love it. I love it. That's I think these ones are a lot easier. I mean, to kind of have your finger on the pulse. If you are in a market looking at what was the growth in the last couple of years, if it's above that 30% mark or whatever that number is, how many offers are on a property, how long does it take for a property to get sold, and then what did the last property market boom what did the last boom do? I think that's very, very simple to do, and I guess it's all laid out in front of the viewer. I like that. I like it. Anything else?
Look, no, I think it's a good step formula to follow. I think with more practice that people want to do this themselves to become easier and easier and easier and to identify those markets. Everything is very cyclical. Same with stock, same with property, same with, gold, silver, recessions and things like that. When recessions happen, this is some, you see a trend with certain assets or certain things that will do well and vice versa. So it's always same with interest rates as well. When they move up and down, what happens? So of course, I always make sure past performance doesn't equal future performance, but history is very important when it comes to financials and understanding the financial, markets. Property, of course, is part of that. And so that will help with making this decision easier for people if they're going to do this themselves.
I love it. And I think it's actionable for people listening. So thank you. To the viewer, look out for the next episode. We're coming out with bangers. Mr. Austin's coming on, no?
Oh, not for a while. I think he's coming in October, maybe November, but we've got maybe a couple other guests lined up as well. So it's going to be quite interesting and different topics.
We'll start ramping it up more and more. Every week we'll put more and more time into this to make it the best podcast that we possibly can. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Carl. See you next week.